The desert wind whispered secrets of a forgotten wonder, carrying grains of sand that once rested upon the grand terraces of a paradise lost. Among the ruins of Babylon, where time had swallowed stone and story alike, a lone traveler stood, staring at the emptiness where legends claimed the hanging gardens once bloomed. Had they ever truly existed, or were they merely echoes of a dream woven into history? The forgotten marvel. The ruins of Babylon, engulfed in dust, with whispers of an ancient marvel lost in time. A lone traveler walks through the desolate land, wondering if the legendary gardens ever truly existed. The mystery begins. Babylon, the heart of Mesopotamian civilization, was once a city of wonders. Amidst its grandeur, there existed a paradise, lush, towering gardens that defied nature. But why do we only have stories, not ruins? Historical context. King Nebuchadnezzar II's rule, 605 to 562 BCE, and his empire's dominance. Theories suggest the gardens were built to please his queen, Amytis, who missed the green landscapes of her homeland. Ancient texts describe the gardens as an engineering marvel, but no definitive proof exists. Setting up the conflict. Were the hanging gardens real, or are they just a myth? The tale unfolds as we dive into history, legends, and the whispers of time. Now we dive into the first part of this historical and mysterious story. The wind carried whispers through the ruins of Babylon, lifting the dust of centuries past. Crumbling bricks, half buried in golden sand, were all that remained of a city once called the Jewel of Mesopotamia. Among the scattered stones, a lone traveler paused, his fingers brushing against a worn carving, faint lines of cuneiform etched into the surface, their meaning lost to time. He had come searching for a legend, a story so old that even history hesitated to claim it. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, an impossible paradise in the heart of the desert. But were they real, or merely an illusion crafted by dreamers? Centuries ago, Babylon was a city that defied the ordinary. Its walls stretched high into the sky, its ziggurats kissed the heavens, and within its heart, it was said, lay a wonder like no other. Water cascading down terraces, vines draped over towering pillars, flowers blooming in the dry heat, a kingdom's devotion made manifest in stone and greenery. Some claimed it was built by a king to soothe the aching heart of his queen. Others believed it was the work of gods. Yet, no trace of this paradise remained. The traveler closed his eyes, trying to summon the past from the silence. He imagined the voices of merchants haggling in the market, the scent of spices carried by the breeze, the laughter of a woman standing on a high terrace, looking over her kingdom. But reality was cruel. No ruins marked the garden's place. No roots clung to forgotten bricks. The great rivers of Babylon still flowed, but their waters no longer fed the hanging paradise. Ancient historians, men who claimed to have seen the world's wonders, spoke of the gardens with reverence. Strabo, Diodorus, Philo, each described its grandeur, yet none could agree on its location. Did the gardens stand proudly within Nebuchadnezzar's mighty city, or had they bloomed elsewhere, in the shadow of another empire? Some whispered that the legend was never meant to be believed, merely told and retold until fiction became history. Doubt clung to the traveler's thoughts like the dust on his cloak. If the gardens had truly existed, where had they gone? Had they crumbled with Babylon's fall, lost to war and time? Or had they been nothing more than a dream, a mirage reflected in the longing eyes of those who wished for something more? He knelt beside a fractured stone, tracing the remnants of an inscription, words weathered yet defiant. A name, half vanished, lingered on its surface, the echo of a forgotten age. A gust of wind stirred the sand, carrying the past forward for just a moment. The traveler exhaled slowly. Whether real or imagined, the gardens had taken root in history, entwined with Babylon's fate. He stood, adjusting his cloak, and took a final glance at the ruins. The story was not over. If no proof remained, then he would seek the truth elsewhere. With that, he turned away from the empty land, stepping toward the unknown, toward the next chapter of the legend. The Rise, a kingdom's gift of love. The queen's longing. Amytis, raised in the lush mountains of Media, struggles in Babylon's arid landscape. Nebuchadnezzar sees her sorrow and vows to bring her homeland to her. The vision of the gardens. The king consults his best architects and engineers to craft the impossible, a garden suspended in the air, fed by the waters of the Euphrates. A terrace structure is planned, adorned with exotic plants, trees, and waterfalls. Construction challenges. The daunting task of raising water to the highest levels in a desert region. Theories of a chain pump or screw-like irrigation system. Thousands of workers, years of labor, and the kingdom's wealth invested in a gift of love. The moment of awe. The gardens are complete, a paradise amidst the sands, an emerald jewel in the heart of Babylon. Amytis steps onto the terraces, surrounded by flowers from her homeland, and smiles for the first time. A symbol of love, power, and human ingenuity. Here we go into the second part and try to solve these rising questions. The air in Babylon was thick with the scent of warm earth and distant myrrh, yet to Queen Amytis, it smelled of nothing. The golden walls of the city rose high, glinting beneath the relentless sun, but she saw no beauty in them. She missed the rolling hills of Media, the cool shade of ancient pines, the music of rivers tumbling over stone. Babylon was powerful, magnificent, but it was not home. King Nebuchadnezzar too watched her from a distance, his brow furrowed in unspoken concern. He had conquered vast lands, built towering cities, and inscribed his name into the bones of history, yet none of it mattered if his queen remained lost in her longing. He could not change Babylon's sky or summon the winds of Media, but perhaps he could bring her homeland to her. The idea took root swiftly. He summoned his greatest architects, his most skilled engineers, and commanded them to create the impossible, a garden that would rise into the heavens, draped in greenery, a tribute to love and power alike. It would not simply be built, it would be grown, a living monument to soothe a homesick heart. But ambition was not without its trials. The architects stood before the king, their faces shadowed with doubt. Babylon's land was dry, its heat unrelenting. To sustain a garden in the sky, water would have to defy gravity, pulled upward from the distant Euphrates. How? The murmurs spread among them, but Nebuchadnezzar had no patience for uncertainty. Find a way, he commanded, and so they did. The solution was as ingenious as it was ambitious. Vast stone terraces were stacked upon one another, supported by thick columns carved from the very heart of Babylon. Each level held soil deep enough to cradle towering trees and winding vines. At its peak, hidden within the structure, lay the secret to its survival, a complex irrigation system, an unbroken chain of men and machinery lifting water to the highest roots, feeding the garden from the river below. As the years passed, the barren terraces transformed. The scent of cedar and jasmine filled the air. Flowers of every color spilled over the edges, cascading toward the city like a waterfall of petals. The hum of water echoed through the stone pathways, winding through groves of pomegranate and olive trees. The hanging gardens had come to life. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, Amytis stood among the blossoms, the golden light painting her in hues of amber. A cool breeze carried the scent of pine, and for the first time in years, she closed her eyes and breathed deeply. Nebuchadnezzar watched from the steps below, a small smile on his lips. His kingdom had conquered lands, but this was his greatest triumph. Yet even the most beautiful things cannot last forever. The foundations of paradise had been laid, but already shadows lurked at its edges. Time was patient, and soon it would begin its slow, silent work. The fall, whispers of destruction. The golden age fades. Nebuchadnezzar's death leads to political instability. Successive rulers struggle to maintain the empire's grandeur. The gardens become a burden. Without skilled engineers, the complex irrigation system starts failing. Water shortages, plant decay, and the once thriving paradise begin to wither. Theories of destruction. Some historians believe the gardens fell to natural disasters, earthquakes, floods, or time itself. Others suggest they never existed, merely woven into tales by ancient historians. Greek historians like Strabo and Philo of Byzantium documented the gardens, but never saw them firsthand. The Last Witness. A story of a Babylonian scribe who, as a child, played in the gardens and as an old man, watched them crumble. He carves the last words of the gardens into stone, hoping someone will remember them. Now it seems like a burden, so we can try to solve these rising questions in this part. Time is an unforgiving architect, tearing down even the grandest creations stone by stone. The hanging gardens of Babylon, once a paradise above the sands, stood defiant against the years, but the whispers of their decay had already begun. Nebuchadnezzar II's reign had been long and glorious, but no king lives forever. When he passed, the weight of his empire fell upon weaker hands. Babylon, once untouchable, became a prize for those who sought its throne. As rulers changed and wars raged, the gardens, his greatest gift, were left to the mercy of time. At first, the decline was slow, almost imperceptible. The vines still curled around the stone columns, the scent of jasmine still carried on the wind. But deep within the structure, unseen hands of ruin had begun their work. The irrigation system, once a marvel of engineering, required constant maintenance. Without skilled workers to repair the lifting mechanisms, the water that had once danced down the terraces slowed to a trickle. The trees, once nourished by the great river, began to thirst. Leaves withered, petals fell, and the laughter that had once filled the pathways faded into silence. Then came the storms. Babylon, despite its towering walls, was no stranger to nature's fury. Rains lashed against the terraces, their weight seeping into the cracks of the stone. In the summer, the relentless sun baked the earth, widening those cracks further. Earthquakes, rare but devastating, rattled the kingdom, shifting the foundations of the great gardens. Rumors spread through the city like fire. Some said the gods were reclaiming what man had dared to build. Others whispered that the gardens had never truly been real, that they were merely an illusion, a story woven into Babylon's glory to impress foreign scribes. But for those who had walked its pathways, who had rested in its shade and touched its blossoms, the truth was undeniable: the gardens were dying. A scribe, old and bent with age, had once played beneath the trees as a child, marveling at the endless green. Now, he sat beneath the ruins, his trembling fingers carving the last record of what had been. His stylus etched words into clay, not of conquest or war, but of a lost wonder. He wrote of the cool shade, the scent of flowers, the water that once flowed like a song. His hands ached, but he did not stop. He feared that if he did, the memory of the gardens would vanish along with their final petals. By the time Babylon fell to foreign invaders, the gardens had long been reduced to rubble. The last vines had shriveled, the terraces had crumbled into dust, and the wind carried only echoes of the past. But the scribe's tablets remained, hidden beneath the shifting sands. The hanging gardens of Babylon were gone. But their story, their story was only just beginning. Legacy, the garden that lives forever. Lost but not forgotten. The ruins of Babylon remain, but the gardens are nowhere to be found. Are they buried under the sands, or were they always just a legend? The symbolism. The hanging gardens symbolize love, ambition, and the power of human imagination. Even if they never existed physically, they exist in history, inspiring countless cultures and storytellers. Modern explorations. Archaeologists still search for evidence, satellite imagery, ancient scripts, and remnants of advanced irrigation systems. Some believe the gardens were misattributed and might have existed in Nineveh, not Babylon. And we are going to end this mystery in this part. Centuries passed. Empires rose and fell like waves against the shore. The great walls of Babylon crumbled, its ziggurats became dust, and its streets fell silent. Yet, in the minds of poets, scholars, and dreamers, the hanging gardens never died. They lingered in whispers, etched into ancient scrolls, described in the words of travelers who had never seen them but swore they had. Some believed the gardens were lost beneath the shifting sands, waiting to be uncovered. Others argued they had never existed at all, merely a tale spun by Greek historians to adorn the legend of a mighty city. Archaeologists searched, studying cuneiform tablets, scanning the earth with modern tools, but no ruins were ever found. If the gardens had stood, time had erased every trace. Yet, even without stone or root to prove their existence, the gardens endured in the way only legends can. They became a symbol of ambition, of love, of the relentless desire to create beauty in a barren world. They inspired paintings, poetry, and dreams of lost grandeur. Far from Babylon's ruins, a young scholar sat beneath the glow of a flickering lamp, running his fingers over an ancient text. His heart pounded as he read the words of an old scribe who had seen the gardens with his own eyes. He imagined the cascading terraces, the scent of flowers carried on the wind, the cool touch of leaves beneath the burning sun. Perhaps the gardens were never meant to be found. Perhaps they were never stone and soil, but something greater, an idea, a vision of a world where love could shape miracles. Perhaps their true legacy was not in ruins beneath the desert, but in the minds of those who refused to let them die. And so, even now, when the sun sets over forgotten lands and the wind stirs the dust of ancient empires, if one listens closely, They might hear it, the faintest whisper of water flowing, the rustling of unseen leaves, the laughter of a queen who, for a brief moment, felt at home. The hanging gardens of Babylon were lost to time, but they were never truly gone. In stories, in history, and in the hearts of those who still dream of paradise in the desert, the gardens live on.